策学院的院长，他这一次来台湾是参加由台湾研究基金会跟长鹏文教基金会所举办的国际学术研讨会。Welcome, Professor Mabari, to be on our show.
Happy to be here.
I would like to begin the question with your new book, Has the West Lost It? You argue that the U.S. should start preparing to become the number 2 power in the world, and while China will be the number 1. What gives you the idea of this prediction, and how soon will we be able to see that the U.S. has become number 2 instead of number 1?
Well, the date doesn't matter. It may happen in 10 years. It may happen in 15 years. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen.
Right.
And I think it's a big strategic mistake on the part of the United States of America.
Prediction and
Happy to be here.
台湾研究基金会跟长鹏文教基金会所举办的国际学术研讨会。Welcome, Professor Mabari, to be on our show.
Happy to be here.
I would like to begin the question with your new book, Has the West Lost It? You argue that the U.S. should start preparing to become the number 2 power in the world, and while China will be the number 1. What gives you the idea of this prediction, and how soon will we be able to see that the U.S. has become number 2 instead of number 1? Welcome, Professor Mabari, to be on our show. Welcome, Professor 学院的院长，他这一次来台湾是参加由台湾研究基金会跟长鹏文教基金会所举办的国际学术研讨会。Welcome, Professor Mabari, to be on our show.
Happy to be here.
I would like to begin the 台湾研究基金会跟长鹏文教基金会所举办的国际学术研讨会。Welcome, Professor Mabari, to be on our show.
Happy to be here.
I would like to begin the question with your new book, Has the West Lost It? You argue that the U.S. should start preparing to become the number 2 power in the world, and while China will be the number 1. What gives you the idea of this prediction, and how soon will we be able to see that the U.S. has become number 2 instead of number 1?
Well, the date doesn't matter. It may happen in 10 years. It may happen in 15 years. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen.
Right.
And I think it's a big strategic mistake on the part of the United States of America not to prepare for a world in which it is going to become number 2. And because of that, the United States of America is making some serious strategic mistakes in its behavior. So this book, Has the West Lost It, is actually in some ways a gift to America, a kind of a love letter to say, hey, you're my friend. I see you walking towards a cliff, and then the cliff is coming. Do our friend tell you, keep on walking? Or as a friend tell you, please turn around? Right. It's a different world. And it is inevitable that America America is going to become number two. And therefore, America is going to make some painful strategic choices. It cannot do everything.
Right.
Now, right now, the United States think it can sort of take a strong stand against China, intervene in the Middle East, stand up to Russia, do everything. Excuse me. Those days are gone. You have to adjust to a different world that is coming. And at the same time, you know, I quote President Bill Clinton in his book as saying that if America is going to be number one forever, then fine, keep on doing whatever they're doing. But Bill Clinton added a but. He said, but if you can conceive of a world in which America is number two, then surely it is in America's national interest to strengthen multilateral rules, processes, institutions. And as you know, right now America is doing the exact opposite. It's undermining multilateralism, where it is in its national interest to strengthen multilateralism. And that's why one of the key recommendations of this book is that the United States should make a U-turn and now support multilateralism instead of undermining it.
Let me ask you, with the trade war still going on, people are seeing there's still a big gap between China and the United States. See what's happening for ZTE and what happened, they didn't get US chips. So that is exactly, people argue, the reason why China want to concede, and exactly the reason why China wants to build up its core industry like Made in China 2025. So can China succeed in doing that? Or put in other words, can the US prevent from China surpassing the United States?
Well, I think, number one, America cannot stop China. It's impossible. And it cannot stop for a very simple reason. It's because of history. From the year 1 to the year 1820, for 1800 out of the last 2,000 years, the two largest economies of the world were always those of China and India. Now, it's only in the last 200 years that Europe took off and America took off. But the last 200 years of world history, if you read it against the backdrop of 2,000 years of world history, it's an aberration. Now, all aberrations come to a natural end. So it is perfectly natural for China to return as number one, and America cannot stop it. Now, it can delay by a little. It can try to trip up China a little bit, but it cannot change the fundamental direction. And all these trade wars, I think America is being very unwise for many reasons. One, it is easier for a non-democracy like China to accept pain than for a democracy to do so. And as you know, President Trump is going to face a very difficult time this November. If he loses the House and the Senate, he'll be in trouble. Now, all that China has to do is to target the vulnerable constituencies, right? Swing them to Republican to Democrat.
All those agricultural states.
And then Trump is in trouble. So I think President Trump is not thinking strategically. And that, sadly, is one of his biggest limitations. Because, you know, he works by the day. He goes from tweet to tweet and doesn't think of a long-term strategy. So a trade war like this is something that, of course, China will feel some pain. But China can absorb the pain with it. Nonetheless, like you mentioned ZTE, what's the big lesson China is going to learn from ZTE? Never rely on America. So basically, America, which right now has a comfortable position of being able to, in a sense, dominate the supplies to China, will find 10 years from now it can no longer do so. So think strategically. Think whether it's in America's interest to do this. And I think, unfortunately, the Americans have lost the art of thinking strategically. And as a result of this, I fear, and I say this as a friend of America, I'm not an enemy of America. As a friend of America, I see America going to make a strategic mistake after strategic mistake. That's a strategic mistake in the next 10, 20 years.
But you do mention the point in one of the comments that it seems there's a general consensus now in the United States against China. You warn that China may be underestimating how dramatically U.S. political and public opinion is swinging against Beijing. We are seeing this general shift across the party line, even in academia, even in business community. And why do you think that there's such a dramatic change? We used to see that there's a divided opinion, some pro-China, some against China. Why now all of a sudden the majority is against China?
Well, in some ways, this was inevitable. Because, Americans had basically assumed that China could not succeed. In fact, I'm writing my project this year. I'm on a sabbatical in 2018. My project this year is to write a book on the future of U.S.-China relations. And I have found quotation after quotation after quotation by senior American people like Hillary Clinton, who almost became president, saying, well, China is on the wrong side of history. China cannot succeed. Only democracies can succeed. Since China is run by a Communist Party, it cannot succeed. That was the theory. But then the practice proved to be the opposite of the theory. China is succeeding and continuing to succeed. And so the Americans, I think, are feeling very angry. They thought that they would always be number one. Now they realize they're going to become number two. And become number two to a non-democracy, to a non-Western power. And as this seeps in, the anger grows quite naturally. And frankly, China has made mistakes. I think China, for example, became assertive on the South China Sea too early, and this created a backlash. And as a result of that, the Americans exploited that backlash against China and tried to use it, as you know, to isolate China. So today, many Americans believe, even though the evidence is not there, that China has become an aggressive power. But the Chinese military doesn't fight wars anywhere overseas. The United States military is fighting wars overseas. So, but that's the perception. And what's tragic is that China has lost the support of the American business establishment. And that's a tragedy because the American business establishment is very influential in America, and actually for a long time was pro-China, because American companies are making lots of profits from China. And they actually were the most pro-China constituency. So having lost them, in a sense, you had a kind of a dike, a dike that was preventing the anti-China sentiment, and that was created by the American business community. But when the American business community stepped aside, the dike broke, and so the flood of anti-China sentiment has risen. So I would say, I was in Beijing a few weeks ago at Tsinghua University, and I met some former Chinese leaders, and I told them, be careful. There is a lot of anti-China sentiment in America today, and therefore all the policies that China used for the last 20 years in trying to manage America that worked very well will not work in the next 20 years.
Okay, I'd like to switch to other topics. The coming summit between the United States and North Korea in Singapore. They try to reach a denuclearization agreement. What kind of implication would that be for the whole Asia? And what if there's no agreement between them?
Well, number one, I hope that it happens. And if it happens, and if it succeeds, I will write an article saying President Donald Trump should get a Nobel Peace Prize. But I think he deserves it. I think if President Trump pulls off a successful summit with North Korea, it is actually in some ways a political miracle. I mean, people forget this is June 2018. remember what the world was like a year ago, June 2017. North Korea was carrying out nuclear tests, North Korea was shooting missiles, everyone thought the situation was getting more dangerous. So a year later, if President Trump can carry out a successful summit with President Kim, and I hope it happens, it's a big deal. And we should really praise Donald Trump for this and give him a Nobel Peace Prize. And I think what it does is that it will lower the temperature in the region significantly, because by far the hottest issue in East Asia is the Korean Peninsula. And I think if you can create a stable relationship, and if North Korea becomes like a normal country, focusing on economic development, which President Kim wants to do, by the way. He's very unusual. He's unlike his father and his grandfather. President Kim actually wants to develop North Korea economically, and we should support him if he wants to do that. So that's I think that would be a major breakthrough for the region, and I think we should celebrate if the summit is a success.
You just mentioned that in Asia, sometimes China makes some mistakes, especially in the South China Sea. From the ASEAN point of view, how do you see China as a bully in the South China Sea, or as a constructive force in the OBOR big project?
Yeah. Well, as you know, I've written a book on ASEAN, which I'm happy to know has been translated and published here in Taiwan too. I actually don't think that the China-ASEAN relationship has been damaged beyond repair by the South China Sea issue.
Okay.
For a start, the dispute is not between China and ASEAN. The dispute is between China and 4 ASEAN countries: Philippines, Vietnam, Brunei, Malaysia, not with ASEAN as a whole. And I think hopefully this year ASEAN will be able to negotiate a code of conduct with China on how to manage the disputes in the South China Sea. So I think my sense is that after having made mistakes in South China Sea, China has learned the lesson. And you notice that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there were headlines every few days on South China Sea. Today, you open the newspapers, there's no news on South China Sea, except for the U.S. Navy going there. So I think China has managed to calm the temperature. And I think fundamentally, to go to your question about the Belt and Road Initiative, ASEAN states can be among the biggest beneficiaries of the Belt and Road Initiative, because the Belt and Road Initiative is where the belt is across Central Asia, and the road is the maritime circle across Southeast Asia. So a lot of the BRI traffic is going through Southeast Asia. In fact, the Minister of Home Affairs of Singapore, Mr. Shanmugam, said that 85% of the incoming BRI investment goes through Singapore, and 33% of the outgoing BRI investment goes through Singapore. And that's in Southeast Asia. So Singapore and Southeast Asia are big beneficiaries of the Belt and Road Initiative, and will continue to be so.
Singapore had been rotating chair of ASEAN this year. So how can Singapore further contribute to the ASEAN and China cooperation? We noticed that several years ago there's some tension between Singapore and China. How is the relation right now?
I would say the relations between Singapore and China now are good. As you know, the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong met President Xi Jinping, and it was good that they met before Singapore became the chairman of ASEAN in January this year. And I think Singapore is very much committed to seeing a strong ASEAN-China relationship. And you know, I'm going to give a big secret away to you. Some chairmen of ASEAN are more effective than other chairmen. And Singapore is traditionally one of the most effective chairmen of ASEAN. So a lot will get done under Singapore's chairmanship. So I think a lot will be done also in terms of ASEAN-China relations under the chairmanship of Singapore. So you will see a very positive trajectory. And at the same time, I think that China, this is what I also document in my ASEAN book, that China, I think, is aware that the pressure from the United States is going to go stronger, right? As the United States perceives as becoming number 2, which we discussed. So the United States will try to exploit divisions, let's say within ASEAN, against China. So it is in China's interest to keep ASEAN cohesive and economically tied to China. So ASEAN cannot be used as an instrument by America against China. And ASEAN, by the way, is good friends with America and with China, and wants to keep good relations with both, but doesn't want to be used either as an instrument by China against America or as an instrument of America against China.
We'll take a short break. 我们休息一下，等一下回来，我们继续跟马凯硕先生来做访谈。我们继续跟马凯硕教授来做访谈。20 years ago, you were the champion of Asian value, which is very different from Western value in terms of democracy or human rights. Are you still a believer of this Asian value? And is the debate still relevant?
Well, I think to put it more correctly, you're right. I was very involved in the Asian values debate. But ours was not an offensive move, but a defensive move.
Okay.
Because, you know, I was in Harvard in 91, 92, at the end of the Cold War, after Francis Fukuyama's famous essay, The End of History,
right,
in which he said, from now on, all societies have no choice, but they have to become liberal democracies. And, you know, that had a very unilinear view of history.
Right.
That we all go down one path of history. I said, no. History is not that simple.
Right.
There's not just going to be one path. There'll be many paths. And 20 years later, I have been proven right.
Fukuyama also changed his view.
Exactly. I think Francis Fukuyama now acknowledges that in some ways he made a mistake in making it so simple. And now you see, especially with the success of China, and, you know, let me give you one statistic, okay? In the year 2000, the United States GNP in nominal terms was 8 times that of China. By 2016, it was 1.6 times. So you can see how the US has dropped relatively vis-a-vis to China. China didn't become a liberal democracy. So clearly there are other alternative ways of succeeding. And the great mistake, what I say in this book, Has the West Lost It? I say something in a very cruel fashion, that Francis Fukuyama's essay did a lot of brain damage to Western minds. Because it made them very smug and very complacent, and so they went to sleep in 1990, at the end of the Cold War, and they went to sleep at precisely the point in time when China and India were waking up. And so they didn't see that alternative parts of history were emerging. And that's why that essay did a lot of damage. And those of us who actually challenged it were trying to do the West a favor by saying, don't be complacent, wake up. And indeed, I have come up with a 20th anniversary edition of my book, Can Asians Think, which actually talks about Asian values debate.
But let me ask you about what you think about Taiwan democracy and its political transformation. And this have something to do with the question we have earlier, which means that Taiwan and South Korea as well seem to follow the middle class model of democracy that is being populated in the West. You have to have economic growth, and you have a middle class, and that will conducive to democracy. But we did not see that in China or in other places. But we do see that in China, in Taiwan, South Korea, and some of the ASEAN countries. What's your thinking on this?
Well, I think it's good that Taiwan has a vibrant democracy. And I think I can understand why the Taiwanese people appreciate what they have. And I actually believe that in the long run, all societies will become democracies too. China will also become a democracy, but not immediately. It may take 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I'm not sure how long it will take, but eventually you'll get there too. So, but it's important not to rush the process.
Okay.
It would be a tragic mistake for China to try and convert to a democracy overnight, because it will suffer the same fate as Russia. Because when the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia went overnight towards a democracy, life expectancy came down, infant mortality went up, Russian people suffered. So it's not easy to make a transition to democracy. But at the same time, it is a mistake to think that once you achieve democracy, you've achieved nirvana.
Right.
Actually, democracies are very difficult political institutions to manage. And the Greeks who founded democracy, Plato, warned, he said, be careful with democracy. Because if you have democracy, you have demagogues who appeal to the mobs, and you may get mob rule instead of enlightenment. So Plato was very frightened of democracy. So in the case of Taiwan, for example, as you know, Taiwan has one of the most difficult political challenges of any society anywhere on planet Earth, right? Because here you are trying to figure out what your destiny is vis-a-vis mainland China in the years to come, right? And clearly, as you know, independence is not an option. Because if you push for independence, unfortunately, I fear that there will be disaster, right? So you've got to try and achieve some kind of unification or understanding with China in a peaceful way, right? It's very important. Now, democracies are not designed for that, right? So you've got to build the really successful democracies, like the Scandinavian democracies, actually have a bipartisan consensus on what is the correct road for the country to follow. So the central path is very clear, and they're both on the central path, maybe a bit left, a bit right. But when you have two parties which are not on the central path, but on extremes, then you have a problem. Because then the country goes from left to right. And today, sadly, for a long time, the model democracy for the world was the United States of America. Today, you can't call the United States of America a model democracy because it has become so polarized, right? I mean, to go from Barack Obama to Donald Trump is to go from one extreme of American society to the other extreme, and without taking the central path at all. So America is going to struggle to achieve a centrist bipartisan consensus, which is what it will need when it has to deal with China. So similarly, it's very important for Taiwan to achieve a kind of centrist bipartisan consensus on what is it we can achieve and what is it we cannot achieve. Because we really don't want to create a disaster for the people of Taiwan, who actually enjoy one of the best standards of living in the world. I'm a great admirer of Taiwan. I love coming to Taiwan. You have a wonderful society. You have a beautiful countryside, which I enjoy. Some of the best walks I've taken are in Taiwan. So I love this place. So keep it peaceful, keep it safe. But to keep it peaceful, keep it safe, work towards a bipartisan consensus.
It's interesting when you put that in the case of China. You do mention that eventually you think China will achieve democracy, but you also said that a non-democratic China will be guided by rationality, while a democratic China will be far more susceptible to populism and nationalist pressures. So are you suggesting that a non-democratic China but rational China will be better for Asia and the world right now?
Well, I emphasize the key fact that when you make the transition from a non-democracy to a democracy very suddenly,
right,
like the Soviet Union and Russia, then you will have a problem. And frankly, if you don't have the institutional checks and balances, then what happens is that the populists win and the nationalists win. And so you have elections today in China, suddenly, overnight, I guarantee you that the candidates that we voted in will be the most nationalist voices. And the most nationalist voices of China will be far less rational than the current government of China. Because actually, as I say, very frankly, the current government of China, the Communist Party of China, is actually delivering a global public good by restraining Chinese nationalism and behaving very rationally vis-a-vis all its neighbors. And frankly, you know, from time to time, we must give credit where it's due. And if you ask me to nominate which government I find to be among the most rational government of any great power in the world today, China is number one. It has the most rational government that is very much focused on its goal of creating a successful middle-class society for China, and is very focused on that goal and trying to avoid getting distracted with conflicts and wars outside China. So wherever it can, it is always trying to calm the atmosphere. And that's good for Asia. It's actually very good for Asia, because you could have had, with China becoming more middle class, you could have had a much more stronger nationalism in China, and a more nationalist China would be a very uncomfortable neighbor for all of us. So let us give the present Chinese government credit. And I must say, I have met many of the senior Chinese policymakers, and I find them to be very thoughtful, calm, rational human beings. You know, and completely focused on trying to do what is right for China and what is right for the region. So if they're doing the right thing, let us give them the praise that they deserve.
I also like your opinion on the result of the Malaysian elections. There's many comments on how that has been, why is there a change here. First, some people talk about is the corruption scandal of the former Prime Minister Najib. And there's the talks about there is the opposition led by the former Vice Premier Anwar Ibrahim. And there's a third reason people are saying is the unique role of Dr. Mahathir. What's your thinking on this?
Well, actually, I do discuss this in this book. That's the next what has happened throughout the world, not just in Malaysia, is that as countries develop and as they achieve more and larger and larger middle class population, the middle class population expects more good governance, expects a higher level of accountability by the government to its people. And I think the mistake that was made by Prime Minister Najib, and I feel sorry because Prime Minister Najib was also a friend of mine. I knew him, and I felt in some ways sad that he lost the elections. But, you know, when you have a major scandal like 1MDB, and when it comes out that $700 million were deposited into the account of Prime Minister Najib, lots of people ask questions. So it was inevitable that there would be a backlash. But believe me, the only reason why he lost the elections is because of Dr. Mahathir. Because Dr. Mahathir was one of the most successful prime ministers that Malaysia ever had for 22 years. And I also knew him when I met him, and I also admire and respect him. And he is clearly a very respected figure by the Malaysian population, and they trusted him. They said, okay, if we go from Prime Minister Najib to former Prime Minister Mahathir, we're going to someone we know. We're going to someone who has actually helped Malaysia progress a lot, so we're not taking a risk if we vote for Dr. Mahathir. So it was Dr. Mahathir's factor was a very critical reason why Prime Minister Najib lost the elections.
Finally, looking back on your long career as a diplomat, as an academician, what is the most proudest thing that ever in your career? And the second is, what is the thing that you wish you have done differently from what actually happened?
I consider myself a very lucky man because, you know, I came from a very poor family in a very poor Singapore. Singapore's per capita income in 1965 was the same as Ghana in Africa, about $500. And when I was a child of 6 years old, when I went to school, I was put on a special feeding program because I was undernourished. Now, as you can see, I'm overnourished. So I'm a lucky man. I came from a very poor background and I've become very successful in many senses of the term. And I enjoyed my 33 years in diplomacy and I enjoyed my 13 years in academia. But if you ask me what I'm most proud of, it is actually very unusual that if you come from one of the smallest countries in the world, which is Singapore, and then you start writing books from Singapore, and when the books in Singapore are translated to many languages, you know, German, French, Dutch, Italian, Arabic, Turkish, Portuguese, you know, Spanish, Thai, and you know, I can go on, right? Maybe over 20 languages. And that, when you write an idea, and the idea has wings, and the ideas start flying around the world, it's like releasing birds, and letting the birds fly, and touching down in many countries in the world. So that, I would say, is something that I'm the most proud of. And I find that when I travel around the world, when I was recently in Harvard and Columbia universities, I was astonished at the number of professors who would come up to me and say, I've read your book. You know, that's very satisfying to know that your ideas have flown around the world. Now, do I have any regrets? Of course, you know, we all have regrets, but you know, and it will be very unusual if you don't have regrets. You know, for example, I could have maybe spent more time in diplomacy, for example. That would have been another possibility. But you know, overall, the successes of my life, on balance, are greater than my failures. So I'm at the age of 69, a very happy man.
Thank you, Professor Barbari, for your time and your thought with our viewers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
谢谢各位的收看，我们下次见。